We will bring back our great American dreams.
Yes, we're going to get this done. This is about economic growth. It's about bigger paychecks. It's about more jobs. It's about a fairness system in our tax code.
If I could say it as simple as possible, I would say that this tax reform conversation is about hashtag keep your money.
I think the president is giving us the kind of leadership we need to get this country back on the right track.
It'll be the largest reduction in terms of dollars of any plan ever in the history of the country, and it's going to be something very special.
Welcome to season 20 of The Apprentice.
Yeah, really.
Isn't this the theme song?
I believe it is.
One of them? The OJs.
And I think the focus would be a little bit later on. The money is who gets to keep it. When you get it, do you just give it to the government or do you keep it yourself? And is that considered a tax break when you keep your own money?
So I guess the audio guy is actually programming the show because we're going to be talking about the President of the United States as he unveiled his tax plan yesterday. But first, on the way into the big tax plan announcement, our own Pete Hegseth said, "Excuse me, Mr. President, could I have a word with you?" And he said, "Sure, Pete, what is it?" And he said, "I got like 3 or 4 questions." The first question was about the national anthem protests. And what did the president say? Well, just watch.
You have certainly started a national conversation this week, Mr. President, on the NFL. You say the NFL situation is a very important situation. Your critics say it's been a distraction, but you say it's critical. You talk about words like patriotism and citizenship. Why is this such an important issue for you?
Well, it is an important issue. It's not a distraction at all because, first of all, I'm doing a lot. As you know, we've passed over 50 pieces of legislation. We have a Supreme Court judge. We have a much stronger military. We have strong borders now. We're going to get the wall. We're going to get all the things that we said. And now we're going, as you know, today is the big day. We're announcing the biggest tax cuts in the history of our country. So there's been no distraction. But the NFL cannot disrespect our country. They cannot disrespect our flag or our national anthem. And they can't have people sitting down or kneeling down during our national anthem. And I saw this a year ago with Kaepernick, and I said, this is a terrible thing. I thought it was terrible. And then it builds up a little bit and a little bit more, and you see what's been happening, and then all of a sudden you see more and more and more. And I came out and I made a statement in Alabama the other day, and I said, I think it's very disrespectful to our country. And the world picked it up. And guess what? Most people agree with me. And the NFL's in a box. They have to do something about it. They're disrespecting, and when I say they, in a way it is they because they can stop it. They have rules for everything. You can't dance in the end zone. You can't wear the pink socks relative to breast cancer, which one of the places. They have rules for everything. Why aren't they honoring this country by enforcing a rule that's been in existence for a long time? So the NFL and the players really have to do the honor of the country. It's for the honor of the country. They have to respect our country. They have to respect our flag and our anthem.
What prompted that in Alabama?
Well, I have so many friends that are owners, and they're in a box. I mean, I've spoken to a couple of them. They say, we are in a situation where we have to do something. I think they're afraid of their players, you want to know the truth. And I think it's disgraceful. And they've got to be tough, and they've got to be smart, because you look at the ratings are going way down. The stadiums are, I've seen a couple of stadiums over the last few weeks. They are losing. There are a lot of empty seats. I couldn't even believe it. But when it comes to the respect of our nation, when it comes to the respect of our anthem and our flag, they have no choice. You have to have people stand with respect.
Well, right now the TV ratings are down year to year, and last year was down. Keep in mind, by far the most popular league in the country, but they are down 11%. And you wonder what's going to happen because we're seeing all these things on social media with people burning their apparel, their paraphernalia. I never remember that happen. Maybe you lost 4 games in a row. They'll wear bags over their heads, but they usually still show up. But now we're seeing some people feeling as though they have to make a choice, patriotism or football. That's where we're at right now.
Yeah, and the president said, look, most of the country agrees with me. A new Fox News poll came out last night and showed just that. 55% say that it's inappropriate to be kneeling during the national anthem. I love these interviews with President Trump because he's off script and he gives us a sense of conversations that he has behind closed doors where he's like, look, I've talked to some of these owners. They tell me that they are in a really tough position.
They're in a box.
And he said at one point that they are afraid, he thinks, of the players. That's a comment that you would not hear from a president ever, but he lets us know the real conversations that are had, the important conversations that we probably need to hear more about.
Donald Trump being Donald Trump. The next big question mark in the NFL is what are they going to do tonight at the Packers-Bears game in Green Bay. Apparently the fans have been asked to lock arms in a moment of unification. Don't know unification of what, but nonetheless, that's what the Packers are going to do. Apparently, they don't know what the Bears are going to do. Right. The Cowboys apparently going to stand in the next game, and so will the Patriots.
Now, come wintertime, Packers fans go have arms because they're so cold. And they just want to hug each other. Number two, I think it's also important that if you want to know what's going to happen this weekend, outside Thursday night's game, which should be a good one, and on the surface should be rated high, it looks as though one team will be standing, and it's the New England Patriots. According to Danny Amendola, they already decided that even though 14 took knees last week, they're all going to be standing this week.
Good.
And, you know, it was about 12 players now after the president talked. It was many more. And we'll see how this goes from here on in. You know, you had the running back on Buffalo stretching out during the national anthem.
Yeah. Meanwhile, let's talk a little bit about what is going on at a high school in a Chicago suburb, York Community High School in Elmhurst, Illinois. The staff put together a display, and apparently what it was supposed to do was talk about First Amendment rights. It was a recreation of Dred Scott's proper way to display a U.S. flag display, and it featured a flag on the ground, which they did back in 1989 at the Art Institute of Chicago. So they're recreating that, but they made it look like a doormat, and this has got so many people furious about what are you doing? If you wanted to recreate something from 1989, there are pictures of it. Just show the picture. Don't actually put a flag on the ground. You're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, you're not supposed to. Here's a letter coming in from the principal, Aaron DeLuga of the New York Community High School. It says this is no way meant to disrespect the flag, the military, or the government. Rather, it was used for students to reconcile their feelings about current issues and whether their First Amendment rights are protected. They're trying to defend that decision. But as you said, you should never use the flag in that manner.
You should never touch the ground.
No, absolutely not.
The other big story that Pete talked to the president about right before he made his speech was about his tax plan. You know, they did something very smart. They got the House, they got the White House, and they got the Senate together, and it took a little bit of extra time, and they finally said, this is the plan we can all get behind, this is what we agree on, no one gets everything. This is just between Republicans. Unlike health care, where they were going at each other from day one, and the president called the House plan kind of mean, and the Senate plan never got off the ground, this time they're all on the same page. And, you know, there are certain things that the president, every president loves more than something else. You know, foreign policy was Bush 41's main thing. But when it comes to taxes, you could see the president's eyes light up. This is all about the economy. This is his main thing.
You hear it in his voice whenever he talks about it. This seems to be the issue he's most passionate about. He's been most passionate about this since day one when he got on that campaign trail. And he was out in Indianapolis last night promoting this new tax plan. Here's some of that.
It's time for Washington to learn from the wisdom of Indiana. We need Washington to promote American jobs instead of obstructing them. We're going to cut taxes for the middle class, make the tax code simpler and more fair for everyday Americans, and we are going to bring back the jobs and wealth that have left our country, and most people thought left our country for good. We want tax reform that is pro-growth, pro-jobs, pro-worker, pro-family, and yes, tax reform that is pro-American.
So let's take a look at some of the details. It reduces the number of tax brackets from 7 down to 3, and they will be 12, 25, and 35. Cuts the corporate tax rate to 20. The president said yesterday on the way to the chopper he wanted a 15, but the Republicans talked him into it. It doubles the standard deduction from 12 to 24,000. Eliminates the death tax, the estate tax, and it also increases child tax
Which
credit.
Democrats say, well, this is just more money into rich pockets. That's going to be their argument from now.
Right. So far, some Democrats saying the estate tax helps rich households. No. People who have farms, the father dies, next thing you know, you got this huge estate tax, you got to go sell the farm or break it up. I don't really think that's rich. It's called working. And also they talk about lowering rates for companies. Those companies hire people. If they have more money, they hire more people. They possibly grow. There's a theory to it. My hope is that the American people and talk show hosts looking to juice up ratings will say, okay, wait a second. Let's not make this a cartoon. This is something you have to take a deep breath, talk to people that know, which we will be doing for every day as much as we can, and then see how it'll affect you.
That's wishful thinking, Brian. I was going through the papers this morning, and I couldn't find one positive article about tax reform. When you look at how many American people want tax reform.
The New York Times, Abby. We've got Grover Norquist. He is the authority on it, and he says this will turbocharge the economy. He's coming up shortly. In the meantime, also we'll have the balance of Pete's interview with the president, and as if that's not enough, the Trump exclusive interview coming up. We exclusively have Jillian Mealy with the news.
Good morning, guys. One more wake up until the weekend.
One more.
Something to look forward to.
Hey, I'll be here all weekend long.
Sorry.
Watch it.
Sorry. Oopsies. I'll shut my mouth. Okay. Good morning to you guys. Let's get you caught up on your headlines of the morning. A teenager charged with murder, accused of stabbing another student in the middle of a classroom. Police say Abel Cedino pulled a switchblade on 2 boys at their New York City high school, killing a 15-year-old and leaving a 16-year-old fighting for his life. A witness tells the New York Post Cedino launched his attack when one of the victims threw a pen at him during history class. Cedino telling reporters he was bullied as police loaded him into a cop car. Critical supplies are ready and waiting at Puerto Rico's main airport, but devastation on the island is keeping it from getting to the people who need it most. Only 20% of truck drivers are back on the job after Hurricane Maria. In addition, many roads are blocked and gas is still in short supply. Take a look at this satellite map released by NASA showing the scope of devastation on the island. Nearly all of Puerto Rico covered in red and yellow squares marking destruction. Fox News correspondent at large will give us a look at from San Juan at 8:15. Geraldo Rivera. Yes, there you go. All right, a Fox News alert. Hollywood icon and media legend Hugh Hefner has died. Playboy making the announcement on Twitter just hours ago with a quote from Hefner, "Life is too short to be living somebody else's dream."
Right, just in time because we're going to have a swinging party tonight. We hope you come in and join us. How time flies when you're having fun.
With just $10,000, Hefner published the first issue of Playboy in 1953, a now iconic nude portrait of Marilyn Monroe. Hugh Hefner, a symbol of the sexual revolution, will forever be remembered for breaking down barriers and building a unique American dream. Hugh died from natural causes at his home, surrounded by loved ones. He leaves behind his wife, Crystal, and his 4 children. Hugh Hefner was 91 years old.
He is a legend.
All right. Thank you, Jillian. He left Esquire magazine because they only offered him a $5 a week raise. Said, that's not enough. I'm going to start my own company. He did.
It was plenty for me. Meanwhile, 13 minutes after the hour.
She is accused of leaking top secret documents. Now, Reality Winner is blaming Fox News. The shows you're watching on this channel, and we're not kidding, you got to hear her excuse. Come on.
Plus, does anyone even remember why taking a knee became a thing? Lawrence Jones has a reality check for the NFL. That's now.
Hey, Lawrence. Good morning.
All out and scream and shout and let it out. We saying, oh, we, oh, we, oh, we.
You know who likes to be in control? This one.
As NFL players continue to protest, originally rooted in Black Lives Matter, we understand, new stats from the Washington Post found this interesting stat that we want to share with you. The deadly police shootings of African Americans last year were down from 2015, and that over 70% of those victims from 2016 also were armed with guns or knives at the time of the shooting. The question then raised is this: do these protesters in the NFL really know why they are taking a knee, and has it been blunted by the fact they're doing it during the national anthem? Joining us right now to weigh in is the host of The Blaze, Lawrence Jones. Lawrence, you saw those stats. Yeah. If there's one, it's too many. If it's without being threatening a cop, what do you think about this?
Well, it's obvious that there is a disconnect between the community and the police, and I think we can talk about that issue separately about police brutality in the cases where it exists. But you can't generalize all cops and say they're all pigs like Colin Kaepernick did, who was the leader of this movement. It would be just like saying
that was on his socks.
That was on his socks, and that's what he interpreted. It would be like calling all black folks criminals. And how would black people feel if the police did that to us? But I got a proposition for my conservatives. Instead of always telling the liberals, when are y'all going to mention black-on-black crime? Or when are you going to go in the community? This should be something that we take on, about improving the lives of the community, taking on this fight of crime in the community. That way, when the left tries to attack us, we have a record of going into the community and saying, you know what, this is our fight.
All right, and here's the numbers on homicide victims on black crime: 7,881 and 7,039 in 2015, so it went up in 2016. But look how high those numbers are, and you say, should we worry about the 233? Yes. But should we be more concerned about the 7,000 to 8,000? Absolutely.
You should be concerned about both of them. And the problem is when you say you care about black lives and only focus on one aspect of black lives, you lose credibility. And that's the problem with this movement. When you have Rahm Emanuel, who wants to take a knee, and all the other mayors in these cities want to take a knee, and they have this issue of crime, but they don't want to take a knee for that, then it becomes problematic. Like I said, conservatives, we can turn this around on them. We can actually go and do the work because they don't have a record of improving the community. Right. We can do that.
And you know what? President Trump should do that. He's got Ben Carson there. Look, he's got Jim Brown's program in the inner city ready to go.
But here's the problem, Brian. He doesn't need just them. I've been asking the president to do this. His new plan for Black America and all that, to go to the cities himself. He likes doing rallies. Go to the communities himself. Talk with the people, and I guarantee you it'll be a different response than the media shows.
And I will add this, and you know this, his one-on-one skills are without peer, and he does this thing called listening rather than talking.
Exactly. He connects with people.
I have news for you. Take some Vivarin because you're going to be outnumbered at noon, and I need you on your A game, okay?
I got to be ready.
Got you at 5, got you at 6, got you
Thanks,
now.
brother. I appreciate it.
See you. Meanwhile, coming up straight ahead, more on President's tax reform plan. More details are coming out, and more importantly, what it means for you. This is Fox and Friends. Glad you're dressed.
For the middle-income people, and it's for the working people, and it's to jobs.
Mr. President, the health care bill this week went down in the Senate. What about this plan makes you feel confident that it won't?
Right now, we've got some quick Thursday morning headlines for you. First up, the White House announcing it will admit just 45,000 refugees next year. That is the lowest number of refugees in nearly 4 decades, and less than half of the cap set by President Obama. The decision comes just a week after President Trump announced new travel restrictions for 8 countries that you can see right there in yellow. And Border Patrol agents find a house packed with illegals near the border of Texas and Mexico. Agents led to the house after busting 3 people for smuggling illegals in a vehicle. And that's some of the news. And now, entertainment.
Thank you, Steve. Well, in the new movie Victoria and Abdul, a controversial friendship once buried by an empire is now being told on the big screen.
She has requested Mr. Kareem be her personal footman.
What can we be talking about? What is a mango? The real fruit?
I would like a mango.
They only grow in India.
Well, I'm Empress of India, so I have 1 cent.
Wow, so is Victoria and Abdul worth the price of a ticket? And how much are tickets? And what else should we buy? Kevin McCarthy is here to review a couple of movies out the theaters this weekend to justify his expense report.
This is true.
Kevin, you love this stuff? Do you love this movie?
I do, and it's an honor to be here, by the way. And Victoria and Abdul is coming out in New York and L.A. right now, and then it opens up everywhere else this weekend in theaters. And this is Judi Dench. She's incredible. She played this role 20 years ago in a movie called Mrs. Brown. Exactly. And Queen Victoria, I mean, Mrs. Brown, in 1997, she played the character. Now she's playing it again 20 years later. And the idea behind this film is Stephen Frears directed this movie, who also did The Queen with Helen Mirren, Philomena, Florence Foster Jenkins. And the idea is that it's an unlikely friendship that she has with an Indian clerk who's
True story?
Yeah, true story, who was sent to England to present a ceremonial coin, and they became friends towards the end of Queen Victoria's life. And it's a beautiful story that combines comedy and drama. I love Judi Dench. And this is interesting. Food plays a big character in this film.
Food?
You saw her eating some chicken in that last clip. There's some scenes where she's just eating food over and over again. I wanted to know, as an actress, when you have to do a scene like that, are you just eating all day? And I was shocked to learn how many eggs she consumed in one scene. Watch this. I am genuinely curious how the eating scene worked in the movie. I really want to know, did you have to sit there and eat all day? Like, what if they got to like 20 takes and you're like on the same piece of chicken? Like,
Oh, no, not the same piece. Oh, a different piece of chicken. Oh, no, not just one piece of chicken, 20 pieces of chicken. When she's sitting having egg in bed, that seemed to go morning, and our props man Campbell came to me at the end of it. He said, "I didn't suppose you're interested to hear how many eggs you've eaten."
Oh my God!
So I said, "How many?" He said, "Just 11."
It's an entire cricket team of chicks.
11 eggs.
That is
Could you
a lot of
imagine
eggs.
that? That's insane. Yeah, and the film itself, I gave a 4 out of 5. Dame Judi Dench is fantastic in the film. Again, it has comedy, it has drama. It drags a little bit in the middle, but she is so great in the film. And if you haven't seen Mrs. Brown, go back and watch that from 1997, and you'll see the character arc now.
And another true story, Tom Cruise.
Tom
is in.
Cruise. What a story this is. This will blow your mind. This is a TWA pilot who was asked to be a part of the CIA, and then he became a drug runner for the Medellin cartel in the 1980s. And it's a true story about a gentleman named Barry Seal. And Doug Liman directed the movie, who also did Swingers, Edge of Tomorrow, 2 phenomenal films. Cruise is so great in this film. The energy he has, it's comedic. There's some action in the film. He does all of his own stunts. He flies all of his own planes, and that becomes a very immersive thing for the audience when you have your leading actor really doing that stunt work. And he recently hurt himself on Mission Impossible 6.
Sprained his ankle or something.
We saw him do that on Mission Impossible 6. He does all of his own stunts in the film, and it really creates an environment where you really believe what you're watching. It is a story where the whole time when you're watching it, all you're going to be thinking is, how the heck is this true?
He's such a big star.
Yeah.
How many stars for this?
I gave it a 4 out of 5. It's worth seeing. And if you have any questions about any movies, you can tweet me at Kevin McCarthy TV. Little tease, next week I'm reviewing my second favorite movie of the year. My number 1 is Dunkirk. My second one's coming out next Friday.
Really? Dunkirk forgot dialogue, though, right?
But that was the beauty of it. I thought it was a masterfully shot film, cinematography, the score.
Ryan, it makes you think.
I like people when they talk to each other.
This is true. I love Dunkirk so much. Yeah.
We know they escaped.
It's such an honor to be in studio.
Kevin, as you know, Brian's favorite movie is Fred Claus.
This is true.
That puts it all into perspective.
Over the years.
Also, here comes the boom.
No.
Okay.
Brian, these are all. Fred Claus I actually enjoyed.
Right.
Fred Claus was actually pretty fun.
Kevin, quickly, how much are tickets these days?
They're honestly, if you get an IMAX 3D ticket in New York, it could be $21. It's crazy.
Date night. I need to get 2 of them.
This is 100% true.
If you want to save money, go to a Yankee game. I mean,
this is so true.
It's unbelievable.
And that's why you're here to tell us whether or not we should invest in it.
I love being in studio. It's an absolute honor. You have a beautiful studio here in New York.
Thank
And
you.
Radio City Music Hall is right behind us.
How cool
This
is
so
that?
crazy. So
Thanks, Kevin.
cool. Thanks, guys.
By the way, the other Kevin McCarthy, the guy in Congress, is going to be with us in this show as well.
I get mistaken for him all the time on Twitter. I get a lot of his hate tweets. I don't know why. They come to me. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's not me. I respond to them and give them movie reviews.
But for first, we're going to ask that Kevin McCarthy the same questions we asked you.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I'll take his questions next time.
We're going to find out how many stars he gives President Trump's tax plan.
That's perfect.
All right, Kevin, thank you.
I look forward to watching that.
Coming up on this Thursday, more Pete Hegseth's exclusive stand-up interview with the president just before his tax reform speech. Pete joins us live from Indianapolis next.
Looking forward to that. Plus, she's accused of leaking top-secret documents. Now, reality winner is blaming Fox News. You got to hear this one.
Right. Because we haven't been blamed enough. But first, for everything. But first, happy birthday to Karen Fairchild. She's from Little Big Town.
Yeah, right.
She is 48 years old and very nice.
I have so many friends that are owners, and they're in a box. I mean, I've spoken to a couple of them. They say, we are in a situation where we have to do something. I think they're afraid of their players, you want to know the truth. And I think it's disgraceful. And they've got to be tough, and they've got to be smart, because you look at the ratings are going way down. The stadiums are, I've seen a couple of stadiums over the last few weeks. They are losing. There are a lot of empty seats. I couldn't even believe it.
They don't show the empty seats, and they don't show the people booing either. There was an article in the Sporting News that talked about how one columnist had spoken to some people at a stadium, and they said, we were told, the camera operators were told, don't show the people booing because it's bad for business, essentially.
Right. And also, it's already starting. They're starting at youth levels, stopping play, and high school levels, stopping to play the national anthem.
The high school band kneeling
Taking
and playing the national anthem. Well, Pete Hegseth was down in Indianapolis yesterday talking with President Trump. Pete, you got some great sound from yesterday.
Good morning.
Well, good morning. Thanks for having me. You guys played other sound on the NFL at the top of the show as well. This is a president doubling down on this issue, believing it's a cultural clash worth having, that patriotism is eroded in our country, and that the NFL is a signal of that. But we also had a chance to talk with him on a number of issues. He was there for his release of his tax reform plan. Also, why did the health care plan go down? Do they want to give it another go? And does that include working with Chuck and Nancy? We asked him all those questions, and this is what he had to say. Mr. President, we're here in Indiana. You're going to launch your tax reform plan in front of this crowd. Who is your tax plan intended to help?
Really the working people. We say the working people, middle class, the people that really haven't been treated right, Pete, and they have been treated right, really for a long time, have not been treated right. Also, it's going to be for businesses where they're going to employ jobs, where they're going to bring in jobs. So it's for jobs. This is a tax plan for jobs and growth for our country. It'll be the largest reduction in terms of dollars of any plan ever in the history of the country, and it's going to be something very special. But it's really for the middle-income people, and it's for the working people, and it's for jobs.
Are there any rates or brackets that are non-negotiable?
Yeah, the 20% is non-negotiable. I wanted to do it at 15%. This is for business. I want to do it at 15%. If you look at China, China's at 15%. Other countries are at higher. I mean, right now we're the highest taxed nation in the world. When I finish the plan, we'll be among the lower taxed, which is very good. I'd like to be the lowest, but you can't be the lowest. There are some that are ridiculous. But I wanted to be at 15. In fact, I was going to start at 15 and maybe negotiate up to 20. But the numbers really work at 20, so we're putting it in at 20, but we're not going to negotiate.
Mr. President, the health care bill this week went down in the Senate. What about this plan makes you feel confident that it won't meet the same fate?
Well, Pete, the health care bill didn't go down. We have the votes, but reconciliation is a disaster. But as you know, it ends on Friday, so we don't have enough time because we have one senator who's a yes vote, a great person, but he's in the hospital, and he's a yes vote, so we can't do it by Friday. So we have the votes. We will do it sometime at the beginning of the year, but prior to the election in November.
Do you still have confidence in Mitch McConnell?
I do. I mean, look, I've dealt with Mitch for a long time, and I think he has to get rid of the filibuster rule. I think it's just a disaster for the Republican Party because it means you need 60 votes on most pieces of legislation, and you're not going to get it. There are 270 bills right now sitting before the Senate. You're not going to get them approved because you're not going to get 8 Democrats. And they want to keep this horrible filibuster rule, which says basically you need 60. So that means you need 8 Democrats to get something approved, and you're not going to get that. So they have to get rid of the filibuster rule. Otherwise, they're just making a mistake. But no, I have confidence in. Look, I really like all of these people. I think they're terrific people. What I'm going to do is we do have the votes for health care, but the filibuster, you know, if you look at what's going on with respect to timing, we have only until Friday for reconciliation, so we're going into next year. But in the meantime, I'm going to start negotiating with Democrats, and we'll see what happens.
Do you feel like when you start negotiating with Democrats, do you feel like you can trust Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi?
It's not a question of trust. First of all, you know, I have a nice relationship with them. It's not really trust. It's if we can do a great health care bill, bipartisan, I'm okay with that.
Even
so
if it's
we
not a
have,
repeal?
Pete, we have the votes to get it done. You can't do it when somebody's in the hospital. You know, when you have 52 votes and you need 51, it's very hard to get because you always have somebody, and in some cases they want a grandstand. A lot of bad things happen. But we have the votes, but we don't have the time because it's Friday. I mean, literally Friday it ends at a certain time on Friday. Mm-hmm. So we'll bring it into a few months from now. We'll vote it. It's block grants. It's going to be great health care. But in the meantime, I have that little period of time. I'll negotiate with the Democrats. If we can come up with a fantastic health care bill, that's okay with me. Good for both parties, bipartisan.
Guys, he was in great spirits. I feel like he's talking on an issue he wants to be talking about in tax reform as a businessman. He's wanted to for a long time. So he and his crew certainly in high spirits when they took the stage in Indiana.
I hate to tell you, after all the problems with health care, sadly, it's not a big deal when it fails. We're almost used to it failing. It failed once in the House, now twice in the Senate. This was somewhat of a surprise that this got so much momentum. But in the big picture, I don't know what he means when he says he has the votes for one guy in the hospital. I don't know what that means. Do you?
He seems to think that given time that they will come around, and that with the wind of tax reform, right. they can get a win and move into it.
Also, as a businessman, the business model of just working with Republicans has not worked, so he's made it very clear he's going to have to do some wheeling and dealing with the Democrats, and he's ready to do it.
On health care and on tax reform, though, Pete, one thing he says is a red line is that 20% on the corporate tax. He says, I started at 15 to give myself some wiggle room. I am not budging on 20.
Yeah, and he said that again in the speech. 15% is where he wants to be. He realizes because of how they're going to pay for it that it has 20 is ultimately where they're going to land, but it sounds like he's going to stay very firm right
Did
there.
he tell you how much money of the Pete Hegseth fortune you can keep?
He said, Pete, you're in trouble. We're going to have a special tax bracket just for you. We're taking it.
The Hegseth bracket.
Well, the last president told you could keep your doctor if you liked him.
Right.
So
That's true.
There you go. All right,
That's
Pete,
right.
thank you very much for going out to the capital of Indiana.
Thanks, guys.
Indianapolis.
Great work, Pete. We'll see you soon.
Yep.
All right, over to Jillian for some headlines this morning. Hey, Jillian.
That's right. Good morning, guys. Good Thursday morning to you at home as well. The FBI warning about a new potentially deadly terror weapon, and the director says it's not a question of if, but when they will arrive in the U.S.
I think we do know that terrorist organizations have an interest in using drones. We've seen that overseas already with some growing frequency, and I think the expectation is it's coming here imminently.
Counter-terror agencies think the drones could be used to drop small explosives or spread toxic gases. FBI Director Chris Wray says he has about 2,000 open terror cases right now, both domestic and ISIS related. The University of Utah taking a page out of UC Berkeley's playbook. 2 people arrested after several fights broke out over the right to free speech. Protesters flooding the campus trying to shut down conservative speaker Ben Shapiro's appearance. But counter-protesters also showed up slamming the hypocrisy.
I'm here to protect free speech. I think that it's unconstitutional. I think that they're a bunch of babies.
The university shelling out over $25,000 to increase security for the event. We finally know how accused leaker Reality Winner smuggled classified documents out of the NSA. She says she stuffed them into her pantyhose. According to an FBI report, Winner also told investigators she wasn't trying to be like infamous NSA leaker Edward Snowden, and that she didn't like her workplace because Fox News was always on their TVs, telling investigators, quote, just at least for God's sake put Al Jazeera on or a slideshow of people's pets. I've tried everything to get that changed, end quote. So, there you have it.
Isn't that what Al Jazeera does
I'm
now?
not sure they're still in business, at least the American version.
Well,
I didn't think
she's
so
been
either.
in jail for a while.
Yeah.
I would love to see pet photos.
Really?
It would be a
I've got
great
some on
channel.
my phone. Here.
Very great. Maybe we could do that in the break.
We'll take it as a compliment.
All right.
Thanks,
Jillian,
Jillian.
thank you.
All right. Meanwhile, coming up straight ahead, another NFL game tonight. Will the Green Bay Packers stand or will they sit?